Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Humankind conversation on activeness. I'm your host, Stu Zimmerman, aka Stuzy. We're here recording this live in Sedona, Arizona, one of the hotbeds around the world of higher consciousness. And Humankind is noted for bringing consciousness through the media to learn more about the chakra systems, mindfulness, and how to have truly a higher quality of existence. I'm very excited about today's episode. If you've happened to have missed last month's episode on mindfulness, come to our YouTube channel at Humankind Center. You'll find us there. It was riveting. We had beautiful conversation with a number of deeply wise humans about mindfulness, including yours truly. But today, we're talking about activeness and bringing that sense of mindfulness into the body so that we have vitality and bring that genie of who we are, the genius of who we are, into the body itself. We have an amazing lineup of three incredibly wise people here. We have Arcturus Ra, we have Iara Line, and right now, our first up is Amalia Camateros. Amalia hails from Australia. She's been a naturopath there for over 17 years. She wrote a book called Spirit of the Stones as a shamanic healer, mystic, and brings people onto the land. And she also has helped to shift our entire community here in Sedona by being a founder in ecstatic dance. Amalia, welcome to the conversation on activeness.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you, Stuart. And thank you for having me here at Humankind Center.
So clearly, Amalia and I go way back because she gets to call me Stuart. And, you know, that's really only from my mom, who used to call me about however many years ago when I was late for dinner, down the block, Stuart. So I have a little PTSD around it, but I'm getting over it. And Amalia's helping me. But it's not about me. It's about her and her wisdom here today. So let's talk about activeness. And as a shamanic healer, what drew you into that field, and how do you define it for yourself?
Okay, yeah, great. So being a naturopath doctor and helping people's bodies for 17 years, and the focus was on body, and already the ailments, the dis-ease, the unease in the body had already taken place, because that's the last seat of diseasement is in the body. So after 17 years, it was like I really started to become more and more conscious about the causation. Not only as a naturopath doctor do we look at the causation of disorder or symptoms in the body, diseasement in the body, but what is the actual causation of that? So I went higher up, and I started to, of course, had a love affair with Mother Earth. And in my busy practice and being married for 15 years and building a house and dealing with bank managers at a young age, I would find that going out into nature would be the place where I could actually decompress and also be impressed. Be pressed in by Mother Earth and something more powerful than my own little mind spinning around.
And release what is repressed.
That's exactly right. Release what is repressed, which is what I'm all about. That's what I'm really here for, to help people with.
Yeah, so just really curious. So you bring people onto the land, and the idea behind it is that they have stuck energy, right? That dis-ease. So how do you work, or how does the land work to help to dislodge some of that energy?
Firstly, having done so much work on myself, because I don't see a practitioner doing something to somebody else. It's really an extension of the practitioner's wisdom and knowledge and embodiment. That's the healing. So even sometimes looking at someone for 1 second can dislodge something in somebody. And that's happened before, where I've bumped into somebody and I get a letter back from someone saying that ever since I bumped into you, my whole life changed, because it's an embodiment thing. To answer your question, however,
Go ahead.
going out on the land, it is that's the arena from where people can actually be present more, not have the distractions of the signs and the posts and the posts on Facebook and all the different media and all the different intelligences out there, but to really just steep into something really simple and natural, and that's the teacher. So the tools that I would use is my own embodiment and holding that presence and being able to see where the shadows are. What I mean by shadows is the stuck parts in the body that are hidden very, very well. You know, we know that. We have facades, we have masks, we have ways of coping from childhood. But because I'm trained in my own life to pick that out in myself, I'm able to see that in others. So using that with intuition and connecting with a greater source of shaman energy with Mother Earth, I'm able to see it, call it out, and bring it out in a very loving way for people to really see it first and then accept it and then feel it.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you mentioned about energy, because ultimately that's all that everything is. Rumor has it, right? Everything is energy, that's including whoever and whatever we think we are at the core. And so what I hear you saying is you're bringing if we're talking about energy as frequency, you're bringing your higher frequency and your spaciousness and utilizing the land and Mother Nature's natural electromagnetic frequency, if you will.
Absolutely.
That can help to dislodge denser energies in the people you work with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also the simplicity and the neutrality of nature, of Mother Earth, is in a loving, embracing way, helps for people to sit back and get down, get out of their head and allow their energy to sink down into their body. And the body never lies. The mind is the culprit. And there's nothing wrong with the mind, of course, but the mind is something else. The body itself is very pure. It's one of the purest expressions of God there is, just like Mother Earth. So blending that body consciousness in with the purest expression of Mother Earth is a way of coming back into a reset point, of coming back into the inner self, so that the mind is not taking over, which is a culprit in a way of, having the duality of, oh yes, and what about no, and I can do it, no you can't. There's a lot of back and forward in that way, but coming into the active embodiment of presence in the body is where the healing, I feel, occurs.
So it sounds like you work with things and energies kind of somatically, let's say, as opposed to talk therapy, where people are so highly identified with their experiences and their narratives as to who they believe themselves to be.
I would do both. I would start with the narrative so people get used to that and they feel comfortable with that, and pretty confident too. So I'll start with that and then slowly bring it down more into the feeling body. There's no use going to the feelings if someone is not aware of what they're feeling, or some of the feelings that have been repressed in the body or in the archives of their mind or the subconscious. That's where the treasure is. That's where our inner dragons are, holding safe and protecting the jewels, which is the trauma or the fears. That they're jewels. That's like gold. That's energy that's been trapped in the body.
And do you notice that specific narratives are lodged in certain parts of the body? Like, let's say, anger. Is that something that's in the liver, or could it be anywhere? What are your thoughts around that?
That's interesting because 30 years ago or so, there was a woman called Louise Hay. I mean, she was here long after the 30 years, but that's when she brought out her book.
How to Heal Yourself?
I think it was called that, How to Heal Yourself, yeah. Had that white cover with the rainbow heart, yeah. And she had brought to light that there are different parts of the body that hold different emotions. Now, for example, if the bladder problem, for example, is if you've had a lot of bladder irritations, she would say, what are you pissed off about? Now, in Australia, we know the word pissing means to urinate.
Right.
So it kind of correlates that way. Or if there's a heart problem, it stands to reason and seems understandable that there's some heartbreak. There's something to do with love or not feeling accepted and loved. And the liver, for example, is apparently a seat of anger, where a lot of those resentments get stored in the gallbladder and the anger gets stored in the liver, because that is a processing plant of the body to clear the emotions. So the emotional toxins would be there too. That would correlate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And as you're talking about, and the topic for the day is really this activeness and vitality. So how we can just love life and have this expansive energy in our bodies just to enjoy life to the fullest, if for no other reason. You work with other modalities as well, right? Such
Absolutely.
as breath and sound.
I'll bring anything.
Bring it all in.
I'll use whatever it takes to bring it home, pretty much. But yes, breath, sound, and movement are the pretty basic counterparts of the hand that holds a lot of balloons, each one.
Yeah, I noticed, I like to play with words.
Yes.
And I've noticed that breath, sound, and movement can correspond to body, spirit, and mind.
Beautiful.
In a way. It's
Beautiful.
all start with the same letters.
Yeah, well done.
And so,
Yeah.
oh, thank you. So why don't we address one topic at a time?
Okay, yeah.
And let's talk about breath, for example.
Absolutely. Well,
How do you work with breath, and are there certain breaths that you work with people in
Beautiful.
to move energies?
yeah, very good. Firstly, I always like to bring things down to the most basic denominator. If you stop breathing, you die.
True.
The more you feel, actually, I'm gonna go back a bit. If you stop breathing, you die. The more you breathe, the more you're alive. The more you feel. That's why when we experience something that feels uncomfortable or we don't want to feel it, the human instinct is to stop our breath. We don't want to feel it. But really, in truth, we need to feel it. We need to feel everything. We are sensory beings. And when we don't feel something, where does that feeling go? It just doesn't disappear. And everything's energy, as we said before, right? So that energy gets stored somewhere in the body. It's kind of like when you're driving along the road and something comes out in front, or a little animal might come in front. The first thing we do is we hold our breath and we slam on the brakes. And that breath gets locked into the body, into body memory. And so it's important for us to then really take that conscious breath out to release what we've stored in our body. So that's one of the ways I work with my clients. And myself, of course, number one first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to teach anything to anybody if I haven't done it myself, of course. And it's important that whenever we feel, even if we're watching the news, you can bet your bottom dollar. I don't know if you have that in America. Bet your bottom dollar.
Some people, in many cases, that's all people have left. But that's a different story.
Blessings to everybody.
Truly.
So we know even when we're watching a movie or news, there's part of our system, our nerve system responds. Everything's responding at everything. We are sensory beings. And if we have one negative thought that comes into our mind, the peptides and the neurotransmitters and all the chemicals, we are chemical factories in a way too, all come down, pouring down immediately. So if you think of a negative thought, immediately you're going to get adrenaline or noradrenaline, and it starts pumping as well. Oh, quick, I've got to fight, I've got to react, right? That's what happens with even a negative thought. So it's important to know that when we have thoughts that are not benevolent to ourselves or other people, to let's just take a few deep breaths now and just recognize that there's something in our body somewhere that needs to be released. And so taking a deep breath and just letting go. There's no pushing on the exhale, because that's, of course, now creating another contraction. So just letting it go, just surrender. That's a big part of the breath. It does it on its own. We breathe in oxygen and we release carbon dioxide. So we breathe in the new possibility of letting go, and we release what we no longer need. And just the second part of that question is, so I call that catch your breath and release. Catch your breath and release. You caught your breath and release it. But then there's also breath work. So breath work is another whole modality.
Mm-hmm. Do you work with people?
Yes.
In that
yes,
modality?
in groups as well. Large groups, small groups, one-on-one, to lie down. You lie down, there's loud music, there's wonderful music. And that music sensory input can take over the mind. Excuse me, takes over the mind. And so there's a way of breathing in a circular, connected breath that doesn't have any holds on the top or holds on the exhale or the inhale. So this eternal breath is kind of like the eternal breath of God. It's how nature works. That's how day and night work. And that's how the ocean waves work. That's how death and life work. So using that perpetual breath that moves through the body helps to, in a sense, like brush clean, like, the bottle brush. You're kind of getting that kind of bottle brush energy, cleaning out all the body and the mind and the emotions. And it's great. It's powerful.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself, and it can even take one into an altered state,
Yes,
or certainly a
very,
non-ordinary state.
It is what we call an altered state too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there a particular breathing pattern or exercise that maybe you can invite people to? I know we just did one deep breath and just kind of let it go, but there are all kinds of breaths out there, right? Some really do promote, like a breath of fire, for example, right? Does more of a vitality. It's faster and faster paced. Is there something you would recommend that people do just so they can help to navigate their own
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
system?
To be honest with you, I'm just going to share with what feels right and resonant for me, what I do, because I don't want to jump over myself into giving something else out there. But whenever I feel I've noticed, you know how you see sometimes people who look really relaxed and they're talking really relaxed, but their foot is up like that. Have you noticed that?
Maybe I'm not as observant as you are, but
I'm very observant of these things.
Okay.
People might look, I'm so relaxed and I'm teaching meditation or whatever, and their foot's like this, and to me it's like, hey, you're not aware of all of your body in that form of relaxation. Or maybe when someone's speaking and they're speaking like this, it's like, let's bring awareness of breath. Let's bring the awareness of breath into the body. When you look at nature, Mother Earth, the air element that rustles through the trees, and then the rustling wind, the wind through the rustling leaves, drops any dead leaves. That wind, that breath of spirit drops the dead leaves. So that's what I would like to say to everybody, that be aware that your breath is like the breath of spirit moving through your body. And just letting go the dead leaves, the dead branches, the toxicity, the emotional too muchness, the electric static energy that can be grounded with a breath. That's the kind of breath I want to teach people. Just be natural and simple, and use the breath as you move along in life, and just be aware of it. It's also important sometimes to get those little sticky notes and write on the sticky notes, breathe, because human beings, adults, breathe 28,000 times a day. Did you know that?
I did not.
And how many of those breaths are we actually conscious of? Not many.
Not many. Okay.
Not many, right?
Not many.
So having something like a reminder, like training wheels around, just here when you open the door, breathe. Oh, I held my breath. Okay. Oh, I'm flushing the toilet. Oh, I was holding my breath. So it is a reminder, because the ego mind doesn't want to surrender so much. It's there to hold things in the filing system and hold it back, because really it's there to protect you from feeling pain. But it takes over after a while and then holds us hostage to its own betterment.
Its own devices, which in many cases actually exacerbates pain.
That's exactly
or the
right.
perception of it, at least.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've covered breath.
Yes.
That's good. Now,
Thank you.
Let's talk about sound.
Let's talk about sound.
Sound off, lady.
Well, sound to me, like, there's a lot of sound healing going on in the planet, in the world, and of course we have the music that we can dance to, and that's going to come in the movement section. Mm-hmm. But sound in the way that I would like to offer you today is using the throat chakra there's a lot, again, when we don't want to feel something, not only do we hold our breath, but often we swallow down. We kind of take a gulp. Even in intimacy, when you're holding someone and breathing, and you can hear them gulp, it's like I'm very aware and very astute of these things, yeah, and it's important for sound to come out, because we are visceral beings. We do the sense of hearing is so important for us, and depending on what sound is happening in nature. For example, if we have a thunderous clap of lightning, it can frighten us, or if we have a trickling of a creek that's very gentle, it does something to our nerve system. So it's important to use the sound as a vibration to release. And when I say release, I'm talking about leasing the body, becoming present in the body.
Well, in some ways, we are leasing these bodies for a limited time only, right? We think we own them, but you know what? It's a limited time only by some measures.
Exactly.
But let's make a distinction here, because on one level, you're talking about sound that we generate through our throat chakra, whether it's through speaking, singing, toning, whatever that is, that can move energy.
Yeah.
As well as the external sounds, the sounds that we respond to.
That's right.
Whether it's the soundtrack to the to the movie Jaws, which gets us all tense and starting to hold our breath, or whether it's something like a waterfall or an ocean tide, which can be very relaxing.
Yes, I use that as an example of how sound can affect us. But really coming from us now, from each and every one of us, I feel it's important to give your feelings a way of expression. Now, that sound, the throat chakra doesn't only relate and only release through sound, through voice, song, screaming, being able to scream into a pillow, for example. There's a lot of trapped up emotion that's in our body, and that density of that trapped up emotion creates denial. And denial is what's really rampant on the planet Earth.
Because it also constricts our energy, or it keeps our frequency lower.
Keeps our frequency low. We're more controlled that way by, so-called higher forces. Excuse me. And so it's important, sound as a vibration, to be vibrated out. And sound is, as we know, sound affects us. And as we know, sound healing can heal us. Toning can heal us. But if we can, I invite you to go down into the body at some point when you're sitting quietly and feel where the stuck energy is. Feel where you feel the density. And everyone, where that is. You know that part of yourself, that when you feel anxious, already know the tingling or the constriction that happens in the body and where that is. So when you've got some time, just go down into that place of density, of constriction, and what sound would that make? If it had a voice, that emotion, that feeling. Actually, we're talking about feelings now. We're not talking about emotions. Emotions are feelings with judgment attached to it. We're talking about sensations of the body. That's what feelings are. Yeah? So going into that feeling place, that sensation of, oh, I'm feeling constricted. Oh, I'm feeling tight. Oh, so, children do that. Children they do that without any holdback. Yeah?
Yeah.
We've been we're coveted in that way.
With a couple of my children, I've got 5 of them, but they're all grown up now. But way back in the day when they were really young, one of the things we just naturally did together was, in a way, tone together. I would go, ah, and I'm thinking of my baby girl, Sophia, who's now 20, not such a baby. She would look at me like straight in the eyes and go, ah, and we just dropped in together into a tone.
Beautiful.
And it felt like we were really just bonding. In a really beautiful way. I could almost feel the oxytocin, you mentioned earlier that we're all just a bunch of chemicals here on some level. I could feel that biochemical of trust and love and bonding just kind of like permeating our entire field together.
Yeah. The sound of the universe, the sound, the frequency and the vibration travels through light, it travels through sound, it travels through love. And so I think it's important to give these parts of ourselves a voice. Now, that can also be written out in journals. It can also be expressed in different ways. It doesn't have to be through sound alone, but we're talking about the throat chakra, which is an expression. But sound is important. That's why when the teenagers, and including myself at some point, they go to the rock concerts and they're able to scream, and the rock and rollers on stage, they're screaming, and it's an emotional release. I remember going to a Michael Jackson concert in Oahu many years ago, 20-something years ago, maybe 25 years ago, in Oahu, Hawaii. And Michael Jackson was after all that big controversy about him and how he was relating to children. And he came out on stage. This was extraordinary. He came out on stage and he stood there in silence. This is one of his first concerts after many years of retracting back into his own private life, See, now I've got to take a breath. I'm getting too excited, so I've got to take a breath and come back. But Michael Jackson stood there and raised his arm and screamed, maybe a scream for 1 or 2 minutes. One long wail. Screamed, ah! And everyone was transfixed. And then after the scream, after 1 or 2 minutes of holding that tone, everybody was together, he collapsed on the ground and just surrendered. That's like an amazing example of how you can release so much through sound.
Wow, powerful.
Very powerful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what about...
Thank you, Michael Jackson.
Thank you, Michael Jackson, because speaking of Michael Jackson, who was obviously known for his music, how do you use music in having people move energy?
Beautiful.
Because that also relates to dance.
Great question, Stuart.
Google it. There she goes again, sounding like my mom.
We're more, English spoken in Australia, right?
Yeah.
I still have that after 25 years or so of being here. But Stu, okay.
Whatever works. Let's
Okay,
go.
okay. So I have been giving earth spirit dance workshops where I incorporate the shamanic with the dance in teaching about the body and teaching about the mind and teaching about Mother Earth's wisdom through dance. And I've done that many years. And a lot of people don't know that so much of me now because it's shifted into ecstatic dance. But both of them, being the facilitator and curator of music for the set list, I will feel the mood like this. For example, in the Earth Spirit Wisdom Dance, the shamanic dance workshops, if I am encouraging a group of women, for example, to step into their femininity or to feel their femininity, because as we know, a lot of the feminine culture has become harder, has become work oriented and a little bit more projectile in terms of penetrating into the field of work. So in this case, I would get some rounded, sensual music that would correlate to the second chakra, which is in regards to the water element. So we're looking at this kind of rounded movement, like kind of belly dancing, to get that feminine energy and that kundalini serpent energy that resides at the root chakra to rise up into the rest of the body. Or, for example, if I am going to lead a dance in relationship to releasing the density of the body, then I'm going to choose the root chakra energy music, which is more about earth and sort of like a bone music, like earth music, slower music to release, like connecting, like being a rock on the earth, just letting go. In ecstatic dance, there's a flow that we start really slow to build up and get the body more do some stretch. In everyone gets to do a little bit of stretching and limbering up. And so the music's very, very slow. It's entering slowly. It's like a relationship we're going to have with the person. I'm creating a relationship for the person that what they're experiencing is very intimate with the music. And so it starts slow, and then it rises up to a little bit more lyrical energy, and then it goes harder and faster and higher and into that ecstatic peak. And then we go down a little bit and maybe have a little bit of a hiccup up and then land them down. This is all to do with sound. This is the sound journey. It's another kind of sound healing.
And moving energy.
And moving energy, absolutely.
Because one thing I notice is when I'm engaged in ecstatic dance, I'm really not thinking about much else. So it kind of quiets the mind in a way.
Yes.
And it just feels this, I feel just a sense of freedom of movement and flowing expression that I typically may not move in that way a lot of the time.
That's right.
And
absolutely. So now we're going into movement, and sound and movement really comes together too. Absolutely. All of it comes together. We can't have breath as one modality, sound as another, and movement as another. Really, it's breath, sound, and movement. It's the whole thing together. But I do agree with what you're saying with allowing the flow of the body. Is that music not only allows the flow of the body, but the mind syncs up with that flow. And then it comes into a relationship with spirit, because we are spirit. We are made of energy and spirit. And so slowing down enough to feel the flow of the music allows us to tune into a higher frequency of our own being, our own self. That's, again, we're coming back down to getting out of the mind, getting out of that chattering, getting out of the mind-made manacles of this is how I look and this is how I should look and what this person looks like better, they're dancing me and it's crazy. It's crazy forming. So getting down into the body, into the breath, with simple elements of breath and sound and movement is what I regard living an active way of life, because it's all about energy moving. To me, that's the currency. Okay, you can have money here and you can have BMWs and Rolls Royces and Rolex watches, whatever material things you can have. It's, of course, they're all energy too. However, I think we missed the mark that energy is the true currency. That's the richness, the aliveness of the energy. So whatever it takes to keep that flowing, like a river, if it stagnates, starts to attract bacteria. We can't drink it, we can't utilize it, we can't even get into it.
Well, they do say that energy is a currency. So
it's a current sea. It's a current of energy, like a sea that moves.
So we're in the process of winding up here, actually.
Yes.
And, this time has flown by with Amalia here. You're fabulous. You're
Thank
amazing.
You.
And is there anything you'd like to, kind of soundbite, leave the audience with here, and also let people know how they can get in hold of you?
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, please get hold of me. Another thing is touch. But we're not going to go into that. I'll just keep it simple. Okay, everybody. So let's take a few deep breaths together. Inhaling into the top of the head. And as you exhale, follow the exhale as if you are the breath, like a coffee plunger or like going down on an elevator down to ground floor. Let's do that again. Taking a deep breath in. See if you can make a sound on the exhale, just like a sigh. We sigh all the time in life, but that's like a victim sigh. This is a proactive release, surrender sigh to Great Spirit. Again. Follow it down to the most basic part of yourself that doesn't lie or compete, and just down into the root of your being, into the root chakra, right there between the anal sphincter and the genitals. That's where the root chakra is, all the way down, where we can connect into something real with Mother Earth. Our roots connect to Mother Earth. Just practice that. Practice cutting in and down. Breathing in and down. Bring it away from here. Bring it away from here. So I invite you to have a look at my website. May I say I really like my website? I do. Of course, our website is a reflection of who we are. So I've found to love myself. Like myself and love myself. It's taken a long time, but that's really important that we do that. So my website is earthspiritwisdom.com. So it's earthspiritwisdom.com. And I have many different things there. I have blogs, I have talks, I have a book there for sale too called Spirit of the Stones, going out into the stone beings and listening to their wisdom and teaching you how you can really become your own inner shaman. You know, see for yourself through the eyes of your own inner shaman.
Beautiful. Amalia, such a joy to be in this conversation with you.
So much.
Thank you so much for being here. And we're going to take a very brief break here. Arcturus Ra is going to be next up, so you're going to want to stay tuned for him as well. And thank you so much for joining us so far.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We're here with the Humankind, and we're talking about activeness. How to bring this enormity of juicy existence and soul energy that we are into these somewhat limited vehicles. And our next amazing guest here is Arcturus Ra, who is a contactee, a scientist, and an experiencer. And we're going to dive into each one of those elements now. Arcturus Ra, thank you so much for joining us here. I love you, brother.
Thank you.
Another wise man from Sedona. So tell me, let's get started right here and talk about contactee. Who would be the contactor?
I like your play of words. There's always something behind the scenes that's plotting to come out with a strategy of how to perturb the mind. The contactor is the energy of interest in development of my consciousness, as in human consciousness. As in the contacts that I've been having is predominantly Arcturian council, my future version of myself, like I'm educating myself through myself. In the Mayan calendar, it says that I'm guided by my higher self doubled. So I'm very in tune with my oversoul. And it is the interest of the oversoul to get this avatar in its original state according to factory programming or factory settings. When your computer fails, you have to go back to factory settings so the thing can reboot and can actually come back up.
Right.
So I believe that the human race it's part of a big play. And I can give you a seminar of 7 days about this story. The human race has fallen. The galaxy has fallen. As it's a long story of a very, very big experiment that comes down to, can consciousness that has risen inspire fallen consciousness to come back up, to come back home? So that's why we have a big play of, the reptilians, the Anunnaki, Sumerians, Draconians, influence, the fall, the intrigues, the politics, which cover a time span of 300 million years, roughly, the commercial interference of or inspiration of other dimensional existence and energies into building this level of consciousness. So the contactor is my oversoul from another timeline, as Hassani, observing me, and Arcturians, which I'm part of, that I'm an Arcturian soul, that their interest is to expand, amplify, and refine consciousness on any level, and to do that to the best of their ability, which also has a storyline where people say, I have to say this like this, you're familiar with the scientist Neil deGrasse?
Yes.
Yeah, we said UFOs, contacts, we have 6 billion phones, why does nobody record directly ETs on their phone? And that explains, that will actually explain the fact that you cannot have them sitting on your couch and record them, because it's an interdimensional process, development of consciousness. So the linear way of thinking is not the approach to make that happen. Is our way of developing consciousness within the vessel, beginning with health and wellness in the vessel, as this is the base for the spirit. And if that's not intact, the spirit cannot be fully in. That's the problem that we've been having for millions of years, thousands of years, that we're patched beings, we're soul fractalized. We're fragmented, and we have to bring all the parts back. I mean, you love to play with words. This ascension game is actually an inscension game. Because the inscension is to get everything back that we have lost along those timelines and temporal wars and whatever, God knows what we have been in, to get into total recall, actually. Remember what it means to be human. To be you, man, to really, to remember, to put the pieces back together. And when you start digging within the self, besides reading and all this external stimuli, within the self, within the cell, it gets really fantastic.
Well, I would love to break it down a little bit here, because you said a lot.
Break it down. Whatever you come, I can go.
Well, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, you inspire me with however you're asking.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Yeah. So
you were contacted by the Arcturian Council on one level,
Yes.
and yet before then, did you have that connection with your oversoul, or did you have that perception that your higher future self was somehow teaching you and guiding you along the way? Or, can you give us a sense of what the journey may have seemed like to you?
So every human, I feel, is a council, has a council. Every human is on Earth, is important, and is worthy. That's why they're here. Not everybody can be here. Like they said, they did the equation of what are the odds of being birthed out of a soul construct on this planet is like 1 to, like, I don't know, 1 billion or something, like, of possibilities of you coming here as a soul. It is very intricate and very special and a very, very powerful gift that we're here. I mean, me being here, it's such, I can tell you this, my German grandfather was in the Baltic Sea, World War II. 9 ships coming back home from the war. 8 sank. And ship number 9 was the one with my grandfather. So what are the odds of me being here, Not only that, then I'm born from a, you can say, terrible, terrible car crash where a truck hit our car. My mom was pregnant with me, and my father died, and my older brother died, and my mom almost died. So almost C-section because my mom was in a coma. So what are the odds, Like me being here by a hair, But somehow
and that hair seems to have left your head. I couldn't help it.
Yeah, with all of that stuff that we go through as souls, you lose something along the way.
I'm not one to talk.
Yeah, so yeah. Call it mobile deodorant stick, So anyway, so you see how detailed that is that we are here. If one thing goes wrong, and I'm just talking one generation back, one thing skips or doesn't add up, you're not here.
It's true.
So we're very blessed to be here. Even when we earlier talked about breath, every breath that you allowed is a gift, in and out, and digest that, have that in your consciousness that you are allowed here. Because when there are higher forces, higher than government, MIB, all of the stuff we want to talk about, when something goes into an absoluteness, as in next level, you're not changing the dial. You're not making any switches. You can do what you can while you're here with that allowance. And that is a lot of work. It can take thousands of lifetimes to figure this out.
Well, I'm inviting everybody in this lifetime right here, right now, who's watching, just to pause for a moment, because what you've said is really profound.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the odds of any of us existing in this form.
Yeah.
It is kind of like winning the lottery on some level.
Yeah.
And yet it's so taken for granted. It's so not acknowledged. And I'm just inviting in, as we are going to be focusing on activeness and taking this consciousness and energy that we are, which far transcends these physical bodies, and putting it into motion with this deeper level of gratitude and awareness of what a blessing it is that we get to be in this form.
Yeah. So, and what I found out digging in myself is, I went to psychics. I mean, as a child, I always had the itch to look for the occult. Again, guided by my oversoul through extraterrestrial contact, they put stuff on the table for me to look at and to see where the resonance is. So I remember when my grandma, when she was alive, my German grandmother, she must have activated me, which was one of a major activations, even though I had contact since I was like 3 years old, of which I can remember. She bought a book that was called Mysteries of the Universe. Mysterien im Universum. And it had these pictures, a Sasquatch, a Yeti, Loch Ness, UFO, Bermuda Triangle, Mayan calendar, Easter Island, unsolved like cultures that nobody knows where they're from, what are their practices, what's the mystery. And when I saw that book, and I was 11 years old on my birthday, I think it was 1984, it kind of struck a chord. Like I was like, this is interesting to me. Like all lights turned on. And I've since 11, now I'm 54, I was investigating the unexplained, what is not accepted by the consensus, the status quo of whatever alliance of scientists say this can't be or this can't be happening. Like, okay, if everybody is so allergic against topics that people find there's an energy current there, there's a response. Because if it's not important, nobody really cares. But the resistance was so strong. I was like, there must be something behind that. So I studied, like ancient aliens, ancient cultures, our influences, where does this come from? And then you find patterns, I feel like I'm like in interdimensional forensics, like I'm like this galactic investigator shaman, where I was like, okay, let's see where the cultures and the religions talk the same. Where do the patterns match? And you find it in the Talmud, you find it in the Torah, you find it in the Quran, you find it in the Bible, where they're saying the same thing. And when you put these pieces together, you understand there's a storyline of a whole. So people say to me, so what are you, an atheist, a contactee experience? So what are you? I would call myself an omnist. Because I believe everything has to do with everything. Everything is connected, and everything stems from one source. And it goes into levels where I also tell the people, like, don't try to imagine the infinite. That's foolish. That's why amoebas don't build bridges. They're different job assignments for different development and stages in evolution, if that makes sense.
Sure. So let's take a step forward here in terms of connecting.
Yes.
Your connection with your higher self, oversoul, and even off-planet influences like an Arcturian council.
Yes.
And how does that impact you as a scientist?
So me as a scientist is like I work in bioresonance, and it is the interest of my counsel and of my oversoul to find something that can inspire people to get into a higher vibratory state. And not with any physical and external teachings or trainings. It's more like, I have like these pendants, and you put it on, and now it's the first thing, feeling. Because experience is the ultimate.
Yes.
If you have experienced, I don't care who believes you or not, or whatever it is, whatever UFO, interdimensional, and life experience, this is a major program that influences your RNA, which is the scriptwriter for the DNA. So I go into feeling. I always say feeling is the new DNA. Like really, I ask people, even with storylines that you hear, take away from what I'm telling you, get into the word wizardry that's presented and the sound of my voice, and then feel deep within your heart. How does that feel for you? What's the feeling? Are you home? You feeling you're having a conversation? Or you feel like I'm trying to impose something on you that everybody must believe? Or am I sharing? And that's where I communicate and where I build a bridge. We're getting in resonance here. That's about bioresonance. So basic example, you take a potato from the acres into the kitchen, it'll rot in 4 days. It'll decay. But you put a potato in a root cellar, it can last for years. That's because of bioresonance. So we take an object out of its natural environment and it's out of resonance, it begins to wither. Well, that's what happened to us. And I'm trying to reestablish the connection between nature and the human, as in hue, as in light, man, and manifest, to come back to the original self of you. And basic sample would be I'd take somebody from Times Square, you know how hectic it is and was,
right,
and put them into the jungle of Kauai, in the Hawaiian island group, and sit you there for 1 hour, and then they measure that person. The brain finds an equilibrium, the hemispheres synchronize, your heart rate lowers, your body begins to recover. So what does that tell me? Bioresonance. I looked at trees. There are these African acacian trees in Hawaii. The natural way of growth in Africa for those trees, 90 years they've reached full maturity. In Hawaii, 20. Why is that? bioresonance is higher. So what am I working with? These vorticular devices.
Yes.
So what's present in a holy place or a holy well? Why do have people spontaneous healings? Why is rehab so great? You know, like the Niagara Falls, the Sedona, the canyons of Sedona. Why do people come here for healing? You know, this is a powerful place here.
Yes, it is.
So the pyramid chamber in the Gizeh pyramid, Queen's chamber, the well of Lourdes in France. What are these places all having in common? Photons, negative ions, magnetic anomalies, tachyon energy and scalar wave energy all meet in this focal point, resulting in your cellular memory going into healing modes that can be measured. So if the cell is introduced to a light frequency of 10 to the 15 hertz, the RNA begins to go into a self-repair mode. Science cannot explain why that is, but the Russians have found out. It's called self-aligning software. So when you introduce the right things to the body can actually follow. And this is where the magic lies of when people say CDs, as in superpowers like finding lost objects, psychokinesis, telekinesis, moving objects, clairvoyance, clairgustant, smelling, clairaudient. The more in tune you're with your vessel and your intracellular communication, the more magical you become.
So can you offer everybody either an exercise or a practice or something that people can do, and maybe it's just simply shifting your attention into such matters that can help to trigger more of that clair sentience in any form?
Okay, so the basic form before you get any gadgets and stuff is really, I call it audio-visual fasting. Off social media, phone on airplane. If you can, go into nature, beach or woods, no talk. And at least 20 minutes, like shut off, sit with you and everything that runs you, everything that's running, and you get clear. And the longer you do that and the more you do it, the better it is. I mean, I love doing that in Sedona when I go to my secret river spot, similar spot where I saw you. I go and sit in the Oak Creek River, right?
Yeah, Oak Creek.
I sit there by myself, just with everything. I say to people, the best meditation is the two words combined. Concentration and meditation is actually contemplation.
Okay.
This is the
I like
merger.
it.
Yeah. So sit and look at yourself and let all the stuff that's running you, all the egoic, all the things you want to do, the active, blah, blah, blah. It's like that. Bring a little bit of Zen Buddhism in, as in don't do anything, but sit with you, with everything, and let it run and observe yourself. Observe yourselves. And things come into play, and healing begins. That's the first level, basic level, before any external thing has been taught to you. Because I studied that, with what was mentioned early in the interview, with breathing techniques. And for some people it works, for some people it doesn't work. But interestingly, I went to Mount Shasta. Everybody begins to breathe different up there because it's forcing you. And the prana gets purer, so people have sightings and visions the higher you go into the mountain. So it's not all hypoxia, as in altitude sickness. Is the higher you go into different spheres. Same goes for diving. The deeper you go, you begin to see things, because the way you're breathing, the oxygen tank and the mixture becomes mildly toxic to a degree, but you're also it's getting otherworldly, because you're beginning to breathe in a different dimension. And you're breathing, same thing. I sat in the pyramid, in the Saqqara pyramid, and you can be as untrained as you want to be. The minute you sit there and you sit down, all of a sudden there's kicks in. It's this holding in between the breaths, and nobody knows why that is. There is a syncopated rhythm in holy places that forces you to get into an alignment what actually your cellular matrix knows. And according to the Gita and temple scripts, that the the development of the bipedal form for galaxies to explore as a sentient beings through soul in a carbon-based carrier is 76 trillion years old. Now, can you fathom the knowledge that's within your cells? They say that the knowledge storage capacity of your DNA alone is, 19.6 billion years? So you are old as Isht. Way older than Earth's development in your cellular matrix. When they found fossils of that medicine plant ayahuasca, the carbon decay reading showed 700 million years. Now, can you imagine if you communicate with a plant that has 528 chromosomes? You have 46. What sentient intelligence is merging with you at what age, and how vast that archive is that can teach you? When we begin to fathom that, then a whole nother other knowledge possibility and section opens up for us. So this is what's coming in the ascension game for us to wake up to there's so much more, and it's way more fantastic than the illusions that we have created.
So how do you put your exactly? Okay, I was gonna breathe on it, but it's a lot, everybody, right?
Yeah, but digest,
Yeah,
It's in time,
yeah. And so here we are. We navigate life kind of as we know it, and as we are allowing it to develop and unfold the best we can. What do you do to keep your energy and moving in a way that is expansive and vibrant? Because our topic really is activeness, and how do we put this consciousness and this awareness into movement, through these vehicles?
Well, I do my own little sports. Like I swim in a river. I hike. I climb. I have a mono wheel, so I do off-roading. It's like kind of trick driving to keep my vessel and my balance and trained, which is also, I realized that total meditation is when I'm commuting out there off-road. It's like all these thoughts come and ideas and epiphanies while I'm traveling, because I'm moving through time and space. So, and have something that you do in life that is your passion. And if it's collecting, I don't know, stamps, anything where you have to have a focus to do it. So when I make my pendants, I have to fill each pendant with crystalline quartz sand, which is like nanoparticles. But every pendant has to be filled at a certain level, and then the lid has to be screwed shut, and it has to be precise. So it's tedious, monotonous work. But trust me, that turns you into like a monk-type super focused state. And when in the kung fu movies, when the abbot tests the student that wants to master skill, but he's not ready, and then like in the Jackie Chan movies, and the abbot is like, okay, I want you to cook rice for these monks and bring water from the well for 2 years, and I watch you if you slip and burn the rice, or if you lose water. As they say, chop wood, carry water, enlightenment.
Right.
Chop wood, carry water. That doesn't stop. That's your grounding. So you don't. It's like some gurus develop these messianic God power complexes. Now I have all the knowledge. Now I can run the world, and it gets egoic. Go back to chopping wood and carrying your water. Keeps you humble, keeps you in your vessel, and this continues because the vessel still bleeds. We're still going through this. There's no way skipping this ascension plan. So I do these things that ground me. I'm triple air, so I have to make sure that my grounding is intact, because I'm a born astronaut. Tethering here, So have a hobby, or turn your hobby into your job or your life's passion that grounds you, that forces you. You have to be here. So like riding my bike or driving a car, you have to be in the vessel. You can't daydream. You can't escape. You have to face this here, and don't dilute this experience being here. Fully accept what's happening and feel everything that's here. So I also allow myself to go crazy. Like I have the craziest ideas when how can I approach people with something that they use in everyday life. It comes from way out there. They don't understand, but how can I put that on them? So as of late, I have developed a scalar wave sneaker. So I was like, how do I everybody's into sneakers, the companies and all the names. And I'm like, okay, I want this to be a therapeutic device that's not isolating you from Earth. So I'm thinking, letting all this oversoul stuff come in. I'm like, okay, I want to put a magnetic soul in there. I want to put crystalline substance and bioresonant crystals in you can say in the tongue of the shoe, so you have the resonance on your feet like as you walk the beach, and a grounding chip that actually brings the resonant frequency from the earth back into the shoe. And I've developed it successfully, and people go like, and the footprint of the soul is the flower of life, basically. So I'm allowing myself with the most craziest idea to go out there and bring it here. And it can be a practical application to help you to ground yourself, spirit in the body, wellness.
I love that. Yeah.
Brings balance back into the body. You're more bioresonant with earth and connecting people. And I'm thinking about that for sanctuaries or homes and beds, showers, paneling, flooring, everything reconnecting you with natural elements.
Oversoul through the undersoul.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't help it.
Yeah. So bring it in as crazy as it is. I'm thinking of a shower cabin that's Shungite paneled with a photonic water filter. So you ionize your body and you get the electrons through the earth, through the Shungite panels in the shower. So at some point I'll build it. You know what? You have to.
That makes a lot of sense, also, because our skin is our largest organ.
Yes.
Right, and we can
Yes.
absorb
Yes.
we all absorb through the skin.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm thinking, let's go crazy. I mean, why not have cars with flower of life rims? So their particular energy spins on the highway, and we're beginning to bless the way people commute with light frequencies and turning our cars into less of a polluting system. I built a fuel diviner that can also do that, so you have less pollutants coming out, blessing your car, blessing the structure, and appreciating that what's actually is unconditional love is that your vehicle takes you wherever you need to go without question, without opinion. That's part of unconditional consciousness that's there. So bringing all that back in and being more precise with what is really needed. I saw this meme once where you saw like a grocery store, and then it said, "What would Jesus buy?"
Right.
So I was like, okay, let's rethink what are you buying with consciousness? Yeah.
Right.
You spoke about money, currency.
Yes.
The current sea. In exchange of energy, So money is not the root of all evil. It's the corrupt mind is the root of all evil that does the corrupt things with whatever tool it has. Whatever you want to blame. We blame money. Now we're blaming AI. There's always something to blame but us. Quintessentially, it is always us. It is always us. You point the finger at somebody. The sky will listen, and 3 fingers point back at you. Remember that, So it's always you are responsible, having the ability to respond. So
That's
what
right.
is your response going to be, positive or negative? Choose your side and be wise.
Beautiful. So as we're kind of possibly winding up shortly here, I also want to talk about that last piece that you mentioned of being or that I mentioned in describing you as being an experiencer. Why don't you just, if you can tie it all in and what you've experienced, and also invite that in for what, as we start to put our lives and souls into a heightened state of activity in these vehicles, how your experiences can really inform that and how we can direct our new experiences.
So let's go into the fantastic. So I always had dreams about being in different lives, being in different bodies, having the same memory or shared memory. So I'm like, is my soul fractalized? Am I being abused? I mean, side project is super soldiers. Some people are abused in other wars and other timelines and get reinserted back into their body. It gets really, really fantastic. So let's go through my story as I investigate with a psychic. And my third eye was partially open, but not fully open. So I had a psychic that kind of, and this is where I say, allow yourself to go really, 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 really crazy and see what happens. And she said that she went into the astral realm, and that lady was an angelic healer, had nothing to do with galactics. I changed her entire spectrum coming into her sessions. I'm laying on the bed. She grabs my head. And she goes into trance, and then she says she found, and bear with me, a USB cable hooked up in my crown chakra being siphoned by an insectoid race in a dimension that's not accessible from here. But she could go there. So she went into that ship and asked the crew of that ship, so who gave you consent to be in that energy body, to siphoning this energy from this soul? And they were like, oh, nobody. So she's like, okay, so I hereby declare clarity, and the consent is not given to remove that cable from this being. And they were all kind of like upset, but when the thief is caught, the thief is caught. So the cable was removed, and after that session, my psyche kind of went open. My third eye opened way more. I could see more. I got way more intuitive.
Got better reception.
Yeah. And then she said that she was told by my Arcturian council that I left the part on planet Maldek before it exploded. I was a scientist there, and I was trapped in a basin in golden boots. This is some, symbology, metaphors, whatnot. So she flew up there, called Archangel Michael in, and did the release of that scientific self to myself. And I kid you not, when that part returned, I felt like my IQ increased by 30%. So there are things that can be done when you dig into the essence of the self. And the last thing was that she saw a canal from my heart to my root chakra was shut. There was a door that was closed. She can see the door was closed, and there was a well at the base, and there was a boar sitting at the well. So we know symbology to a degree that the boar represented the ancestral lineage and history, and it was blocking the passage. So when she removed that block and reconnected and was spiritually rebuilding a golden corridor from my heart to my root chakra, that boar flipped out because it wasn't of use anymore. I couldn't guard the entrance anymore and dissolved. And this was my ancestors, where somewhere in their lineage, thousands of years back, somebody was very pissed. And all the geniuses and inventors and all of that, you're not getting anything. You ought to be broke. There's nothing coming. And when she removed that, my abundance, with me being in my purpose, this is all you have to really. It's like an alchemy, how to design yourself.
Got to be in alignment.
I can't sell you hair shampoo, can I?
You won't have much luck at it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So I have to be in purpose for what I'm here to do with this planet, as in replenish and redirect light. That removal resulted in me. I came up with the invention of photons, realizing how to capture photons from the vacuum. It's a whole other scientific story. And my sales picked up very little. The flame started igniting in that department. And I stayed there ever since, and it was forever flowing ever since. That's the blessing, even through COVID, even more so people are more health conscious. And that is my grail. That's my grail, and that helps people. And what makes me happy is that people feel a difference, or can make a difference, or they're activated into doing different things without me having to tell them, I don't know, yogic practices or different techniques or things you got to all mentally, you got to compute, and you got to learn, and you got to repeat. There's nothing for you to do but just be presence.
So how can people get access to you and some of your devices?
So my website is ra-key.com, and you click on store, and then you see everything that's listed, and have fun, enjoy, experiment, and go in. I have tinctures, I have oils, I have creams, everything to enlighten and bring more light to the state of being with natural elements.
Well, thank you so much for being in your alignment and inviting us all to a higher frequency.
Absolutely.
Deeply grateful.
I enjoy this. The thing is also, is a psychic said to a person that consulted me and the psychic and what I do and why these things work. She said the main essence why this thing is so highly resonant, not just because of the science. Ra loves what he's doing. He's really in love with that. In the purity of his heart, it's undiluted and pure, and that's why these things actually emanate. And that is what we're spreading here.
And on that note, let's all breathe in our own purity, and we're going to take a brief break. So let's breathe it in. Ra, thank you again so much.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you all. Please stay tuned. We have Iara Line coming up next on this edition of Activeness with Humankind.
Yeah, and don't forget Arcturus Ra on YouTube and ra-key.com website. Find me there.
Welcome back. I'm your host here, Stu Zimmerman, aka Stu Z, and you're listening to and watching Humankind. The conversation today is around activeness, taking the spirit, taking the love that we are out into the world, into these physical beings, and enjoying the heck out of life. And we're here right now with Iara Line, who's got so much going on. I'm going to have to read about it a little bit to you all. So here we go. And an entrepreneur, originally from Brazil. So if you've been watching our episodes so far, we've covered Australia, the continent of Europe with Ra from Germany, and now here we are from South America, Brazil, with Iara. So this is a worldwide conversation, literally. She's a family and systemic constellation facilitator, a neuro-linguistic programming coach, and speaker for the growing conscious learning movement. She's helped hundreds of people and hundreds more, thousands more on the way. And she's really here to invite in the divine right that we all have to simply be happy.
Yes, we all have the divine right. Yes,
Exactly.
our divine birthright.
So let's get into it, Iara. First of all, once upon a time as an entrepreneur, I imagine you were being a little more in the material world and perhaps a little bit less so in the world of consciousness and awakening.
It is true. I do have a background as being a tax and business attorney at law in Brazil, and then being a tax advisor and business advisor here in the US. And I was pretty much in the corporate world until I burned out. And until I started having an awakening, that was not all about that, not just about that, that there is like so much more.
So when you say you burned out, does that mean that you actually left the working world and say, okay, take me, what's going on, what's up, and you started to get some downloads? Or
Actually, on the corporate world that I was working in Brazil, I was coming back home. I don't know if anybody relate with that. I was coming back home every day, like crying and desperation. It was just like too much pressure, too much. People was not seeing me as a human being. It was just like they were seeing me as a machine, and I need to do those tasks, and I have a deadline. It doesn't matter if I work like 10, 12, 14 hours, weekends, and work all the time. I need to deliver that. So I came to a point, I remember talking with my beloved husband, and my husband told, Iara, you're killing yourself, and I don't like seeing that. And I'm sorry, but if you keep doing that with you, we can no longer be together. And it was like a marking point for me. Because he thought, I cannot see you doing this with yourself. And for me, that hit so hard because, like, wow, my soulmate telling me that, okay, there is something wrong in this scenario. And that's when I left the corporate world and I opened my own law office in Brazil after it became an international law office as well. And the quality of life just like shifted completely. Like I have in 3 months, just in 3 months, I was making the same amount of income that I was doing as coordinating these 5 IT companies. And I was having weekends off. I started doing yoga and meditation. And I started having my great awakening, started getting in touch with myself and with these superpowers. And there's so much more than just the material world.
Well, that's beautiful. And congratulations. So how did family constellation work come into your awareness? And how do you work with people to use family constellation work for them to be more in touch with who they are and take that into the world?
Now, first I would like to tell how family constellation came to my life.
Please.
One more, I was having an issue with my relationship with my husband on the beginning, and I was having all this jealousy, and I was like, he never gave me any reason to be jealous of him, basically not. And I was like, this is not right. Where is that coming from? And I started investigating that, and somebody told me you should try family constellation. And I was like, what is that? When somebody said about constellations, is that astrology? What is that? I didn't know what it was. And I went to a family constellation session. It was a one-on-one family constellation session. And during that session, this is very private, but I'm sharing with you all. During this session, it came up that the jealousy that I had towards my husband was actually an issue that I had with my father. And during that session, we're able to bring things and balance things during this family constellation session. And I'm not kidding. I slept that night, and the next day, I was not jealous about my husband anymore. It worked like magic, and I was like, I was like, how is that possible? Because I know whoever here already feels jealous about something. It's a horrible feeling. It drains your energy. It's just such a low vibrational feeling. And for me to have that shift, and I was like, wow. I want to know more about that. And then I got very involved. I started going to group family constellations, started studying, and then eventually became a practitioner as well.
And so, what kind of transformative experiences, how do people relate to that, and what's the application that they can use in their lives? Is it any emotional issue that they have that they may not even be aware of the origin?
Absolutely, because family constellation, usually when a person comes to a family constellation session, usually they already tried everything and nothing seems to work. And if this is your case, this means that most likely there is an issue in your family system. Now you may ask, how does that work? Well, that works like as Arcturus Ra says, we are all connected. And we're all connected in what we call the morphogenetic field. So we have a family system, we have the human being system, we have the animal kingdom system. But let's say on the family system, we're all connected. This means that the well-being of one person affects the well-being of the other person. If you had I'll use Arcturus Ra one more time. If his grandfather came from Germany, came in a ship, and he was the ship that he was in was the only one that actually people survived. All the other ships sank. So perhaps like that man and everybody that was in that ship had a feeling of guilt. So wow, we're the only one that survived. This happened with people that was in the Holocaust as well. And plus all the traumas, that happen inside a ship, right? There is like starvation, there is disease, there's like so many things that can happen. So let's say that everybody that was in that ship suffers some type of trauma. And it was an unresolved trauma. They said, well, we finally arrived. Let's say we came from Germany to America. We finally arrived in America. And now we just need to carry over. We don't have time to think about, I have a trauma and I need to go to a psychologist, especially in the old days. No, we need to keep going with life. We got to make a living, right? And they carry the trauma. Then they meet his wife, and then they get married, and they have a child. And then that trauma can be passed to the next generation, and then to the next generation, and the next generation, through what we call epigenetics. There is a science that already proved that we don't just inherit the color of the hair, the color of our eyes. We also inherit the traumas, but we also inherit the strength and positive things from our ancestors as well.
Right, as well as from the environment that we're currently in.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're not that hardwired from, that's the genetic piece, but the epigenetics means the outer environment that influences how our cells evolve and grow from here.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
And so how does neuro-linguistic programming fit in terms of how does that expand your sense of awareness and put that life and that love that you are into action?
I think it complements family constellation in a way. Family constellation, as I told, work with the morphogenetic field, so it's not analytical. I'm not like looking at you, Stu, the way that you put your hands here or the way that you're holding a microphone. That is more part of the neuro-linguistic part of things. And reframing how your brain perceives things. But family constellation works with the morphogenetic field, that is the field that knows that all of your family. Now, the neuro-linguistic programming can help like afterwards, like for integration. Because let's say you go through a family constellation session to work with addiction. Addiction is very common, because you can be carrying addictions behaviors from your ancestors. So that's great. So you do the family constellation session, and we'll be able to identify some hidden aspects of your family lineage. And maybe there is a person that was addict in the past, and that person was excluded from the family lineage. And because of that, you, the client, is having this addiction behavior. So we're able to identify that and bring that to a balance on the family constellation. But addiction is beyond that as well, right? There is other mental aspects and physical aspects, and neurolinguistic programming can help you to rewire these aspects and have a better integration after like a month that you did a family constellation session.
So let's go more deeply into what it's also known as NLP, right? The initials for neuro-linguistic programming. Can you give us some examples of how you would use NLP?
Yeah, some people can be very radical. I'm not really radical with NLP, but I want to give an example of NLP that one of my tutors, like Tony Robbins, used. For instance, he had this patient that was addicted to cigarettes. And so when that guy smoked a cigarette, I'm not that radical, just to tell, but when that guy was smoking cigarettes, he is just feeling the pleasure, right? There is the pleasure, there was the endorphins and the dopamine. So your body perceives that as a pleasure. Now you want to change, you want to help that person to change the perception the person has about smoking cigarettes. Now, what Tony Robbins did, for instance, I wouldn't do because it's too radical, was to put that guy in a closed room and make that guy smoke a whole package of cigarettes until his brain makes the association that actually cigarettes are gross and give them nausea and is disgusting, and that person will never wanted to smoke cigarettes anymore. It's all about changing your perception of things.
I had that experience myself in college where, we were staying up all night with a couple of buddies, supposedly studying. They were smoking cigarettes. So, okay, I'll smoke cigarettes with you. I smoked like a whole pack in one night, and I felt so bad the next day that I have no desire to pick up anything tobacco related like ever again.
Yeah, it's like, well, okay, you change. Like
Right.
there's something that happened in your brain, your body that said, okay, I don't have pleasure doing that anymore. Actually, I'm disgusted about that, and I no longer want that. So there are some radical approach to NLP, and some that are not so radical anymore. For instance, let's say that you're a salesman. And every time that you do a sales, you can take, for instance, a mint essential oil and smell that mint essential oil. And you start doing that every time. So you start associating that successful sales with the smell of mint essential oil. Now, let's say you start, after doing that for a month, and every time that you do a sales, you start saying, okay, so before seeing a client now, and I know I'm going to close that sales, I will smell that it meant essential oil. And your brain, you make the connection that this means you're going to close a sales. And you're more positive and you're more excited to actually close that sale. Most likely going to close that sale.
So that's like a form of anchoring or something like
It is
that.
anchoring,
So
yes.
it's that association
Yes.
with something positive,
Yes.
with something that has not yet occurred,
That's correct.
that you have a new relationship to that is also highly positive and even magnetic.
That's correct, yes. So it can complement the family constellation. Completely different things, the family constellation, the NLP, but one can complement the other one.
So how do you like to work with people? What is your modality that you kind of lean into the most? And just share more of that, please.
It's definitely the family constellation because the transformation that I see in people. So people come to the office and sometimes can be with a physical pain. Like I have a pain in my shoulder and I already went to all the doctors and nothing seems to fix that pain. And when we do a one-on-one family constellation, we have a board, a wooden board, and I'll show you here. And we have those figurines over here for a one-on-one family constellation because there is group family constellation as well. And we put the family members will be represented by those figurines. So the client will be one figurine. We have all the family members that want to come to the board because once we open the field, that is very similar to the Akashic field. The morphogenetic field is kind of similar to the Akashic. When you open the field, you know who wants to come to the field. And once you open the field with the figurines and you go to the field of each family member on the board, let's say, I'll say over here those two. So let's say the blue one here is Stu. Let's say the red one is Stu mother. And let's say that you're having, and once I say to the field that this is Stu, and this is Stu mother. The field knows that. Then I'll tell Stu, I want you to look to your mother and see the sensations that come to your body. And then I'll come to your mother's field also and see the sensations that come in her body. And with family constellation, the field eventually will show if that pain that is coming, if you have a pain in your shoulder, this come in your shoulder, is in your family system, the session, the field will show where it's coming from. So let's say, for instance, that came from your father that was carrying like a heavy emotional weight in his shoulder for some reason. And then, as you say, you're going to tell your father, there's another figurine to represent your father, and you can tell your father, Father, I'm so sorry for what happened with you, and I'm so sorry that you have been carrying this deep weight in your shoulders. But now I ask you to release me from that. And now I give to you what it belongs to you, and I just keep what it belongs to me. I no longer need to carry that weight within me, because you don't. You can pull the strengths of your family lineage. You don't need to carry their traumas. We are the ones that our ancestors have been waiting for, because morphogenetic field shows that once you cure, you bring healing to one person. If you heal yourself, you're gonna heal that with that specific issue. Everybody on the back will get healed, and everybody moving forward will get healed as well. So it's just like fascinating, and see people come back and say, wow, that pain in my shoulder actually disappeared. Wow, my addiction levels like so much better because I could see where my addiction was coming from. So it's just bringing me such a joy in my heart to be able to facilitate that, because I'm not healing anyone. The person is healing. We're open the field over here, showing these hidden dynamics that the client is not able to see. And from seeing that, healing happens.
How long has this family constellation process been around?
Well, Bert Hellinger, since like the 90s officially, but Bert Hellinger, that was the creator of family constellation, he already passed away. He's German, by the way. He started like way back, like on the 70s, when he was originally a priest from the Catholic Church. And then he went as a missionary. He went to Africa, and he was able to live with the Zulu tribe in Africa. And one thing that fascinated him was like how that people would really worship their ancestors. Even though the people already passed away, they would celebrate their birthdays. They would celebrate their victories. They would also always be thankful for their ancestors. And he thought it was so beautiful. He was like, wow. And in the Catholic Church, he couldn't see that, and that really stuck with his mind. And eventually, he became a therapist, a psychotherapist, psychologist, that all types of therapies that you can imagine. And he came into creating the family constellation. But imagine that was based on that. The seed that was planted was when he was at that Zulu tribe and saw that, because what he noticed also was that people were so happy. You know, the people that they honor their ancestors, they were always like celebrating ceremony, and they're happy, even with all the difficulties, even with all, right? Africa, those tribes, they fight within each other. There's a lot of disease going on. Even with all the odds, they were happy.
So how do you do your happy? What is it that gets your juices flowing and has you beaming and radiant with that smile that I always see you with every time I run into you?
For me, it's like being nature, be surrounded by people that I really love, doing what I love to do. I just love sharing my knowledge. Like I learn something new and I apply myself, I apply some clients, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to share with the world. I just love like sharing things. Knowledge is for me, is like everything. Take the knowledge, apply the knowledge. And it just make me happy. Yeah. Okay. Eat good food. Eat good food also, for sure.
Okay.
Eat good food. This week I'm like sugar-free. So good.
Yeah, because it really is a bit of a, our journey in life is really to take this consciousness that we are, which is ultimately beyond the body, and have it be fully integrated in the body. So we get to enjoy, as Arcturus Ra mentioned earlier, the odds of our existing, each one of us individually, is beyond minuscule. So it's such a great gift. How can we make the most of it and put it into use, put it into action?
It is.
And one of the things that I've noticed that all of our speakers here today have in common is service. How can we help to lift others up, right? Because that is something, one, that gives us joy. And two, it's perhaps the best use of this energy that we are, is to help to raise the energy around us. And
Absolutely, because we're all connected.
we're all connected.
Because we're all connected. So if you raise your energy, you're helping other people. When you do your healing work and your inner work, you're helping other people. It's like just that ripple effect, for sure.
Yeah. So what do you recommend to people in terms of what they can be doing to take their happy to a new level and really put it into motion?
Yeah, I want to recommend actually a family constellation practice that I believe is one of the most powerful that it can be. Just remember that we all came from a mother and a father, right? We all came from a mother and father. And this means we're 50% our mothers and we're 50% our fathers. And what happens when we don't accept in our heart our mother and our father? You don't accept yourself. So when you don't accept yourself, you cannot live your fullest life. You just cannot. We always have something hanging over there. So it's so important to bring that acceptance to your heart. And I'm not telling you, like, if you suffer any type of abuse by your father or by your mother, you don't need to love them to death, or you don't really want to relate with them because they're abusive with you. No, it's not this. Is to accept the fact, if it wasn't for them, you're not going to be here. You would not be who you are. Simple like that. And it chose them. So one practice that I think is a very powerful practice, I think it starts with the mother, because the mother is the one that gave us birth, right? Just imagine, I would like everybody to imagine, feel free to close your eyes with that one, to imagine your mother in front of you. And pay attention to the feelings that come up when you imagine your mother in front of you. And if they're not positive feelings, I invite you to find in your memory bank one good moment that you had with your mother, because I'm sure you had at least one. And I'm talking about your biological mother right now. And if you never met your biological mother, just imagine how the biological mother looks like. But imagine one moment, one pleasant moment that can bring happiness and joy to your heart, that can bring a little inner smile. And when we come to that place of gratitude and love and pure love, and if you're still having a hard time because you had a hard time with your mother and still have a hard time finding that love and gratitude, imagine the mother number 2 in front of you. The mother number 2 is the same mother, but is in a higher octave. So it's the mother that you wish she was with you, but she couldn't be because of her own limitations. But bring that gratitude and that love. And once you're in that point of gratitude and love, if you already are in that space, then tell your mother how grateful you are that she gave you birth, that she was able to be the portal for you to come to this earth. And you can say, if you're at home, you can say out loud and say these words to your mother. And if you're ready, even tell her how much love you have towards her. Because you know that mother carried you for 9 months. She gave you birth. She most likely breastfed you if she could. Not every mother can do that. And she kept you alive because you wouldn't be here. She kept you alive one way and another. Maybe she wasn't the best mother of the world, but she kept you alive. But when you're able to really have that honest love and gratitude and acceptance. And also to understand that that woman did her best on her capacity to raise you. Because our mothers have their own traumas as well. They have their own issues. They have been carrying some things that a lot of times we don't know. And when we really bring that gratitude, that's when you bring acceptance in your heart about your mother. And this can shift everything in your life. It can be very powerful. Just this simple exercise. And you can even bow yourself also. Imagine your mother in front of you and bow yourself in front of your mother. Honoring that woman. And know that when you're honoring that woman, you're honoring yourself. Because you're 50% your mother and 50% your father. So I invite you to do this exercise, listen to this video again. And if you need, do that as many times as you need until you feel that acceptance in your heart. Because that's you shift things. As you imagine, mother is all about, is our first success in life is through our mother, because being born is a success. Not every baby are born alive, okay? Second success, be able to suck the milk from your mother's breast. Not every baby has that opportunity as well. And not every mother can give that also. So the mother is about success, actually. It's about life, being open for life. A person with mother issues maybe have issues about being open for life and success. When I say success, it's not just financial success. So what is success for you may not be the same definition of what is success for me. But having that feeling, okay, I'm here, I have a purpose, I'm fulfilling this purpose, this is success for me. And through the mother, we can achieve that.
Iara, thank you so much. I'm not sure how you all doing out there, but I can feel a shift in my being to a deeper state of gratitude and lightness. And my journey with my mom has certainly not been a straight line. There have been plenty of moments that I've had some kind of radical energetic separation from her in my adult life and even as a teen. And it just felt like I was, in a way, recapturing more of my own essence by diving into your guidance.
Yeah, because like there was that acceptance on the heart, right? Okay, she wasn't the most perfect mother in the world, and come on, gosh, I don't even know. I'm not a mother in this lifetime. I don't know. It must be tough. You have all those things going on, and you still gotta be a mother, 24/7 job, right? With all the other things going around you, they do their best.
Oh, I
question
understand.
about that.
Being a parent, even as a dad, never been a mom. Although, the truth is, one of my wives passed away, and I raised a son from 5 all the way up, and that had me do my best to tap into some of the qualities like nurturing that may not have been my go-to in my more masculine state, but having to kind of play both roles, did my best to try and, what would mom do? Or a loving mom do, more specifically. And and just to say that this is a very profound pathway for healing and for coming back into wholeness.
Coming back into wholeness, yes.
Which I feel like ultimately that's what our topic has been about today. It's called activeness. And yet, in my understanding of it, it's really taking our wholeness and putting it into moment-to-moment practice. And it comes out as active.
Yes, it's all connected, right? When things are right inside of us, is right outside of us as well. It's the same thing, I don't know if you ever have that growing up when you say, gosh, that kid is so lazy, or this person is so lazy. And have you ever probably heard about that, right? Somebody calling another person lazy and all
Of course.
that. Yeah. But This can be in your family system as well. This can be something related to your mother.
Comes from
your
a whole
father.
line of lazy people.
Yeah,
Don't blame
it's
him.
like, don't blame. I'm not kidding. It can be. It may not be their fault. Said, oh, go to the doctor. You have a hormone issue. I don't know. And it's like you have all those blood tests and it's all good and what's going on, right? It can be that. Bring to that wholeness. Bring to the acceptance of the mother, of the father, of letting go, also giving back to the ancestors. Here's what belongs to you. I give back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to give back what belongs to them. You don't need to carry the heavy things that they carried all the time. You can be the one to stop right now so your child, your grandchild will not have to carry that as well.
Mm-hmm. And I have some experience with that as well.
Oh,
Both in doing breath work and even doing some other kind of deep meditative work, where it came very clear to me that one of my issues I got from my dad. And I said, well, would you take it back? And sure enough, energetically, I really did feel like something was lifted. So I know that to be true.
yes. And we give back with love, right?
Yeah.
It's not about, it's not, here it is.
No, right. I'm not throwing it back in
love.
his face. I just say,
Yes.
please, here, you take it. If it's yours, it's yours, and let me be me
Yes.
in my wholeness.
Yes.
And he, of course, he wants that from me. He wants my independence and freedom to be whole.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I'm glad you had that experience.
Me too. It really, and people notice it. People say, I've noticed that you seem a little different, a little either more gentle or just a little softer in the appearance somehow, in presentation. And all I can say is, thank you. I'm doing my work, and we're all doing our work.
Yeah.
And to your point, and it's already been mentioned, we are interconnected. So your healing is my healing, and my healing is your healing, and our healing really can heal everybody.
Absolutely. Sometimes we just want to heal the world. I want to change the world. I want to heal the world. And just starts right here.
Yes.
If you just focus right here as a starting point, the world will be healed.
Yeah. So that's everybody who's watching right now. A little more incentive. Now log on your fire to do your work, and hopefully not all of it seems so laborious, because what I'm also hearing in some of the family constellation work, we'll call it work, but really it's an experience and a process that need not be so, weighty necessarily, especially as we're releasing the weight.
Yes, absolutely. It's just it's an amazing line of work. I didn't have any idea that could go so deep and so many generations behind. And there is this experiment that I love sharing with people. There's two experiments. One they did with human beings, and the other one they did with mice. But the human beings, what they did with humans was from the victims of the Holocaust. So they took so they went to a certain area, I forgot the name of the city, said, okay, so let's interview people that was descendants of the victim of the Holocaust. And the same area, there is some other people living there that they were not the descendants of the victims of the Holocaust. And this is about the epigenetic stuff, and they did the blood tests and noticed that the levels of cortisol of people that were descendants of the victims of the Holocaust was super high. So they were like, wow. Okay, and the person didn't have any apparent reason to have such a high levels of cortisol compared with the other group, just really proving how things get passed from generation to generation. And they did another one with mice. Oh, poor little guys, that they put some cherry blossom smell inside a cage and put the mice over there, I don't know how many. And then every time that it would smell the cherry blossom, they would give an electroshock on that mice. And they did that many times. It would smell, put the smell, another shock. So then they said, okay, the female and the male had baby mice. They had baby mice, and then they put the baby in a cage, and just by exposing them to the smell, the cherry blossom smell, they would have the same body reaction of having the electric shock. It's just to prove that things really it passed from generation to generation, and it's time, guys. It's time to release. It's time to let it go.
Yeah.
Those things.
So really, as we heal ourselves, we're not just doing it for our own individual and personal benefit. We're actually doing it for whatever lineage there is to follow us going through time, right?
We are, yes.
As well as where we're here right now and whoever we're in contact with. So
Yes. Let's be the ones.
exactly. So if it's not enough just to do it for our own enlightened self-interest, let's do it for the people around us and the people who are going to follow us on this planet. And let's just see how much we can lighten up. And with that, Iara, thank you so much for joining us. How can people get hold of you?
Oh, thank you so much, Stuzi. Thank you, Humankind Center. It's a pleasure to be here. So to contact me, you can go to my website. That is lifechangebreakthroughs.com. So it's lifechangebreakthroughs.com. You can find me on Instagram as Iara Line or Facebook. I love interacting with people. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact the Humankind Center or contact me directly at the lifechangebreakthroughs.com. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to have you here and to share your light and wisdom with everybody. So thank you, Iara.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you all for being here. We're going to take a brief break and have a message from our sponsor, Daughters of Heaven Conference. So stay tuned for them. And we're going to come back and all the people you've seen here today with Amalia Camateros, Arcturus Ra, and Iara Line. We're all going to be in conversation together. So stick around for that one as well. We'll be right back.
In the spring of 2023, during a sacred Sunday service, when Michael Murdad spontaneously spoke or channeled the words, "The Daughters of Heaven," there was a palpable wave of silence and awe that moved through everyone in the room and in the viewers around the world.
It was the pause that was heard around the world. It was the pause that was heard around the world.
Lightworkers are here to serve mankind. The Daughters of Heaven are here to serve God.
An unprecedented spiritual activation and integration.
I saw a bright white light and a strong vibration, yet so loving and gentle. It's like an activation started, and it's not going away.
The Daughters of Heaven are the final wave of lightworkers that have come to complete God's divine plan of awakening.
The Daughters of Heaven are here, now, holding space, bringing God's light back to our hearts, back to Eden, heaven on
I
earth.
began to feel an amazing radiating resonance in my body, mind, and soul, like an angelic waterfall of love from my head down my back into my heels and grounding me.
I felt a rush of warm energy flow through my body. It feels like Daughters of Heaven is a name for something I've always felt since childhood.
Moved in slow motion. We could feel something big, something special, something new was coming.
Peace and love envelop me, and extraordinary feelings in my solar plexus and heart chakra. I feel like I'm shining like a Christmas tree.
To the Daughters of Heaven reconnected me on the deepest level with my heart and soul.
I always felt drawn to the Divine Mother, but now a veil was lifted, and I feel her speaking to me and guiding
Heart
me.
chakra blossomed, and I felt at last that I found what my soul's been searching a lifetime for.
The very words, Daughters of Heaven, seem to carry light codes and information beyond just the meaning of the words.
This is a beautiful call to all light workers to take their work to the next level.
The Daughters of Heaven are embodiments of the Divine Mother, and they serve the Divine Mother as midwives to help birth the Christ in everyone they meet.
So welcome back to Humankind's conversation on activeness from the heart of Sedona, and not only the heart, but the minds of Sedona. And we have here Amalia Camateros, Iara Line, and Arcturus Ra. And you've heard from each of them individually already today. And we're just going to kind of get in the conversation and kind of wind things up a little bit and gestalt it all, bring it all together. So I know Ra likes a little German psychology word. I could tell.
Gestalt.
Yeah, so I just want to toss it out to everybody. So we're talking about activeness, which is really about taking consciousness and putting it into motion. What would you like to share about both the conversations you've heard from each other today or any questions you have of each other in terms of how all friends out there watching can be more active in their own awareness? Are there any questions that either of you have for each other? Because I've been doing a lot of the asking.
Well, let me ask you, when you do the family constellation with people, how do you get, like, because I feel like you're channeling the psychic confirmation that you are nailing it, that it is so, what you're saying, that it absolutely makes sense and there's something happening there? Because I got that with when you talked about my grandfather on a ship, like the guilt that he carried, and he never spoke about it, but he must have carried it. That why me, you know? So how do you find those things?
Thank you, Arcturus. The way to find in a board, in a one-on-one family constellation, I will step on the field of your grandfather. So if your grandfather wants to be part of that board, I'll have a sense that he want to be part of that family constellation. And then I'll step into his field. Once I step to his field, even though he already passed away, I'll feel like if I was him. So this means I start feeling body sensations. I may feel pain, physical pain, emotional pain. Can be very intense sometimes strong nausea. So I can feel his feelings, basically. And from the interpretation of those feelings, right, because I'm in his field, I can figure out what was going on over there. Like, did the guilt really exist? Was he really feeling guilty or not? There is other feelings like involved when he was on that ship. So I need to, with your permission and the permission of your family lineage, I step to the field. And then I'll step out of his field as well. And then I do this with several family members that want this to happen, all for your healing, because you'll be the one that come with a situation. You can come to me and say, Yara, I'm coming to you because I'm been feeling this way. Something is uncomfortable in your life. You know, it can be a physical or emotional pain or something related with abundance, for instance. And then through going to the morphogenetic field of those key family members, we can have that feeling what's going on. So when I go to your grandfather's morphogenetic field on the board, and there is a figurine that will represent you, I'll look at you as your grandfather would look at you. And I'll see the sensations, that is what's going on, what is coming from me and what's coming from you. Because you're going to have your body sensations as well. What happens with you when you look to your grandfather? How do you feel? Like, what is the body sensations? How do you feel? You feel anger, you feel anxious, you feel that you want to just run away when you're in front of him. And from that, we can figure out what are the dynamics between both of you. And if the dynamics are out of balance, we'll use some healing centers or something to bring the balance back. So you can say, for instance, to your grandfather, and you can imagine your grandfather in front of you, or look to the figurine and say, Grandfather, I'm so sorry for everything that you went through. You know, I know you're so strong. You went through all of that, and I so much admire your strength. You know, you can say things that you want to say to him as well. And you can have your feelings towards him. And then when I'm in his field, I'll see if there is anything that comes through me that maybe he would say to you, all to bring balance to that relationship. So you no longer need to carry something that he carried for so many years. And he can be released as well, because when you're carrying something that is not yours, there is some connection it's not a healthy connection. You know, you can have connection heart to heart, the golden light heart to heart, but you don't want to have an unhealthy connection with a family member. So basically, that's how it works.
That's why I came.
Is that clear?
It's clear, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the
Beautiful.
question.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, we've had a reasonably serious conversation here in terms of, you know where I'm going with this? What role, if any, do you see as laughter playing in putting our, getting into that energetic state of expansiveness, of gratitude to be here, of a sense of lightheartedness that maybe we don't attach so much contracted energy to some of the narratives we tell ourselves. And so I'm just kind of curious, what role does laughter play in your lives in terms of taking this beautiful soul consciousness energy that each of you are and kind of spreading it out throughout the body and moving some of the denser energies that may otherwise get stuck? Amalia.
Yeah, thank you. I love that question, by the way. Love it. Okay, so first of all, I want to say that this is where, down here in the gut, is where we hold a lot of the emotional energy. And it's also known and said scientifically and medically that this is the second brain. This is actually one of the first brains that was actually developed first, the gut instinct. And we tend to, sit on a lot of our feelings. We tend to sit on our shit. Trying to bring laughter to the situation. And so, and also that's the second chakra too. We're talking about chakras, the wheels of light, and energy that transmit energy and receive energy. And this is the area here of expression, of creativity. And so I would like to just wanted to quantify that part, that this is where we laugh from, pretty much down in the gut, don't you think? It's in the gut. And I think that for me, laughter is the top. For me, out of all of human emotion, I love laughter. To me, I started laughing as a child in school and in class, and laughed so hard one time that I lifted the desk over my knees and fell backwards because I just laughed so hard. And it's also a release of emotion, isn't it? When we release. Now, I remember going to I did about 20 workshops in Australia called Genesis, which means coming into being. And the teacher there, David, powerful teacher, we used to call him Truck Stop Enlightenment because he'd come in chewing gum with a t-shirt, but he was brilliant, cut through everything. Be like an emotional dentist, and we'd be fretting in our seats like, who's he going to pick next? And I remember he picked me, and I was married for 15 years. One of the tumultuous marriages the only marriage I had, but the marriage of tumultuous. And see, I'm stuck on that trauma. You gotta laugh about
I see a family constellation coming up.
Consolation for everyone over here, people.
You gotta laugh at the situation. Anyway, so David picked me, and it's like all eyes now on me. 30 people now. Amalia's on the hot seat. She's going to have to release the deepest, most intimate, fearful, traumatic parts of herself. Well, all of a sudden, I started laughing so hard. I fell on the floor. Everyone laughed so hard. And David said, that's another way of transmuting your emotions. Good job, Amalia. So it doesn't have to be pain and tears and crying and fretting. It can be laughter because it's an energy that gets to be released. Yeah? The bank of energy that we've held down is, as I said earlier, it's an energy. So we get to release that into the currency, the ocean of life. Yeah?
Yeah. Anybody else want to share on that regard about laughter and what role it plays for you?
Well, I'll keep it simple and short. It's from the gut. Isn't there a Hebrew word for an angel that's called ha ha ha, and that is the breath outward, and it comes from here. So this is the release, the pushing outwards to eliminate what's no longer necessary. So that laughter makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and for me, it's just like, how can I say, enjoying each little thing of life. When I say each little thing, that's each little thing, in like the little bug, and see how fun is that. Gosh, that little bug. Okay, I had like 5 bites over here is hurting, but how interesting is that? And laugh off those little things, and sometimes they're crooked things in life, but laugh about them anyway, and just be light on yourself and be light on the daily basis and dance and breathe. It's just, be happy.
Interestingly, is to her family constellation is I'm now having this epiphany that all of us are constantly trying to build the ideal family, and we see other family members in everybody we meet all the time, in everything that we meet, and we're trying to fix that all the time. That's what I'm getting now. That's just what's coming in.
I think that sense of connectedness, that we're all connected, even as not just like blood family, but a galactic family, a earth family, right? And like about helping each other as well. And the sense of belonging, because if you think about as human beings, we all want to belong to somewhere, belong to a system. So that's it. It's about belonging, and belonging. But to belong, you gotta be part of a family. And when you're part of that family, you wanna help your brother and your sister, because you know that you're connected. I think that's my point of view of that, in a way.
It's interestingly with you, I'm getting grandmother energy.
Grandmother.
And my grandmother is like coming through you. I don't know why that is.
Oh wow, maybe we open your field and we don't even know. Sorry if I did that. Maybe you do.
It's all good. Like I have no issue. I have no complaints. But this is like it's like my grandma is like coming through you somehow. That's so interesting. Because I'm very open. I'm very sensitive. I sense things. So when people say stuff, I'll check the field and then I see what's going on. So a very very insightful. All of us coming together is not just us speaking here. We're creating a synergetic entity that is created through us or better yet, the man behind the scenes. Respect, John. This super entity that we create, and as in making this function, communicating, that activates people. That's happening something on a bigger scale here.
Oops. Yeah, I'm noticing, and I know we talk about this from time to time about the human family, the brotherhood and sisterhood of man, and that we are ultimately one humanity, all sharing this sphere of Earth together, and just really invite in that is one of the manifestations of our activeness, is that we do relate to each other as family, whether it's because we've chosen to, whether we don't always necessarily on a conscious level maybe choose our parents or our siblings. On an unconscious level, probably so, but as we walk the earth with our communities, we choose who we want to hang with and who we want to be with. And in that regard, I'm reminded of that quote by Benjamin Franklin: "We must hang together, or we will surely hang separately." I know it's a little dire. Sorry, folks, but it goes towards, I think what I perceive as to be like the punchline to the ultimate cosmic joke, and that is heaven is earth. Heaven is earth, but so is hell. So choose wisely. And that's the choice that we all get to make. Just like you've chosen to hang out with us here today, and we're really grateful that you have. And I'm not sure if anyone has any closing words you'd like to share, but feel free to. Please.
Thing that Osho said, interestingly, he said that we always place heaven. It's not here. It's so far away. And we are so separate, and dreams, everything is there, and we practice the separation where he says it's heaven, the faculty of heaven is within you. That's within your God code. Greg Braden, read the Hebrew letters that make the Gattaca code that says that is Elohim within the body, eternal. It's written in us, and as they say, as above, so below. As in the mental faculty, so shall it be in the physical. That means we are here to bring heaven forth, to representing Source God in the vessel. So heaven is here. It's not away, and we have never left that actually. We just changed our perspective, and now we have the opportunity to change the perspective to you've never left heaven actually.
Beautiful, thank you.
I'd like to follow on from that Arcturus Ra. That it's one of my favorite things to say to clients or to myself as well, is that the Garden of Eden never left us. We left the garden. And the Garden of Eden is within. It's within our own heart. That portal that connects to the God state, the higher self, the God state, that we sew up in our heads all the time that we have left the Garden of Eden, which is really that green heart chakra. and for me, it's all about embodiment. It's embodying spirit. It's embodying the galactic races and the realms and all of it. The experience gets to be known through our embodiment, and the embodiment requires feeling. And so I just wanted to say the embodiment is the active part of the wisdom you were talking about, the knowledge, that when you experience it, it becomes wisdom. And so the wisdom is always there in a silent way, waiting for us to be able to tap into it. That's why going into nature is so beautiful, because we can tap into, as you were saying earlier, Ra, that going into nature, there's that place where we can get reset, and the quantum field of the energy of nature allows us to connect into that quantum field of our soul. So
beautiful. Iara, any final thoughts?
Little word. Just want to share with everyone, just remember, because we're all connected, when you take your action, it can be the smallest action ever. Think about that. Is that benefiting just yourself? Is benefiting all? Is that right or wrong? How does it feel in your body? Because the smallest action can have a huge effect in all of us. So just to really remember that your actions matter. You matter. You matter.
Well, I just want to thank our panel again. Arcturus Ra, Iara Line, Amalia Camateros. I'm Stu Zimmerman, also known as Stuzy, and you
are the audience.
And you are the audience, and you could reach me at onlythesource.com. That's onlythesource.com, and you can find me on YouTube as well on that channel. So, on behalf of Humankind and the conversation around activeness, thank you so much. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Humankind Center on YouTube, and keep tuning in and tuning up. Thank you so much for joining us. Sending you so much love.
Thank you.
Blessings to everybody.